Welcome in back. Look, I am so excited. We are here. Championship Sunday. It is here. I'm over the moon. This is my favorite weekend from the standpoint of you got the final four teams. All the matchups are broken down to a nice fine powder. We get to get very specific into what is going to happen on Sunday. And this one specifically, NFC title game is going to be a divisional rematch. Obviously, we're going to have these teams playing for a third time this year. We've got two good quarterbacks on both sides of the ball, one an exciting rookie, one guy that's been to a Super Bowl before, looking to get back to it. Got one really good roster, obviously, is what the Philadelphia Eagles are, and the Commanders, who have surprised a few folks. But obviously, the way that they were able to take the fight to the Detroit Lions last week is indicative of a team that is ready to go out there, maybe shock the world as far as that's concerned, as they've already done it thus far in the playoffs. So without further ado, we are bringing back two people that obviously we had on previously to the show, and I'm extremely excited about that. First and foremost, for the home team, the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2 seed in the NFC, we are bringing back Mr. Brian Cameron of Philadelphia Sports Network. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm alive and well, man. It's championship weekend, and no better feeling than this. Sorry for the folks that are in Cancun. I mean, they might be better than where I'm at. It's snowing where I'm at, so I'll give them that.
Hey man, enjoy my tie, and you ain't got nothing to worry about because you're not playing for nothing no more, man. Happy to have you back again, Brian. And
Appreciate
of
it, man.
course, for his divisional rival, the Washington Commanders, coming off the big win in Detroit, we are bringing back my good friend Mander Manny. How are you doing today, Manny? Good
Hey,
to
like
speak
I
with
was,
you again, my guy.
like I was telling you guys earlier, man. I'm happy to be here. This is a new experience. I was not expecting to be here. I'm glad to be here though. I'm gonna enjoy every single second and minute of it. I'm just looking forward to some championship football.
Absolutely, man. And look, obviously, this has been a long time coming for you guys. Eagles are no strangers to this game, whether it's, obviously the Andy Reid era, the 2000s, obviously coming into this era, which they've won their Lombardi trophy, now been able to be on this weekend a few times since then as well. This obviously is hallowed ground in the sense that it's very difficult to get to this point. No matter who you are, you set out every single season to hopefully play on this specific Sunday and try and hold up that AFC or NFC championship trophy, because that means that you're going to the final game in February, and that means a lot from that aspect. But I did want to start here, and it's not every day, every year that you end up giving a divisional rematch as far as that's concerned. I am somebody that as likes to pay attention to kind of like the stories, the narratives as far as that's concerned. You have two passionate fan bases: Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington Commanders. Obviously, the Commanders are coming from the side of the team that has not been here in a long time, but now wants to get back here. The Eagles team that's been here for a while. Talk about kind of the rivalry between you guys and how you guys kind of view the other team from this perspective, given the different paths that you have got here. Manny, I'm gonna let you go ahead on first and kind of talk about how you view the Philadelphia Eagles versus Washington kind of rivalry, and how now this is going to manifest itself in this third matchup.
Yeah, so in this rivalry, it dates back a while, man. It's like a while. As much as we hate the Cowboys, the Eagles, they're there too, man. It's been beef on site, every battle ever since the body bag game. It's been a lot of physical and competitive games. Recently, I'll say that the games have been a lot more competitive. The Eagles they've come out on top for a couple of them, but I like the way that we've been able to be competitive even in our down years. With Sam Howell, he was able to take the fight to him and put on a show for them. But now I think with Jalen Hurts with their era, and Nick Sirianni, I think it first started towards the end of the Doug Peterson era. I think we were 2020 when we were trying to fight for the I think we're 7-9 trying to win the division and make our way to the playoffs. I remember everybody in the NFC East, they were rooting for Jalen Hurts to stay in the game. I think he started off kind of shaky. He was getting hit a lot, and then I think Peterson was still there at the time. I think he wanted to take him out, kind of like his goodbye there, because I think he was gone after that season, right? Yeah, so I think the rivalry started kind of, as far as this modern era, it started there. But now with Jayden Daniels, here's a completely different story. It's just a new chapter. I don't want to put it in a new book, but it's a new chapter right now. So I think we caught a couple glimpses. First game, we felt it a lot, even though a lot of these guys haven't seen each other before. Commanders brought in a lot of new faces, a lot of new coaching staff. front office, owner, all different. So it's kind of new, but we still felt that animosity, felt the tension from game one before even a snap was even played. So I kind of like that, and then it kind of grew off from at the end of game one, and then going into game two. Losing that first game, it kind of we knew that we had to get our get back in. So then game two, the rivalry felt like it intensified. So I like that, and for us to be able to come on top, I think each person got a game. So I think now it adds a little bit more to the rivalry going forward, knowing that these teams are, especially with the quarterbacks, going to be here for the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to ask Brian from this perspective. When you have this success, a sustained success, specifically as a football team, you kind of lose a little bit of sight of those rivalries, and there'll be times in which they kind of pop back up, but you just have those teams that you feel like are more competitive in the division that you see on a consistent basis. And I'm sure you kind of feel that way, maybe a little bit more about the Cowboys, specifically in recent years, or maybe that early 2010s, late 2000s feel of the Giants from that perspective too. But talk to me about bringing back the focus as far as the Commanders as a true divisional rival, this third matchup, and specifically, as Manny kind of talked about, the new faces, obviously head by Jayden Daniels, going up against Jalen Hurts, and how that kind of adds a new dynamic, as it feels like there's a little bit more chippiness in talking about maybe making sure you hit these quarterbacks as far as making sure you treat them like runners, a little bit chirping as far as that's concerned. So, Brian, from your perspective on the Eagles side of this rivalry, how do you look at that, and specifically as we roll into the third matchup between these two teams this year?
Man, I'm going to say this on the record. I hate the Cowboys. I hate the Giants. But the Commanders, or back then Redskins, they were always a thorn in my hand. Like I hated the weeks that we played at the Commanders because there's always, like Manny says, always been competitive with them, despite who's out there. Excuse me. And no matter if it was Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell, you had the Kirk Cousins days. Ryan Kerrigan, I hated him on the other side of the ball. But it's gotten to the point where I feel like both franchises. This year is intense enough just because you have Jayden Daniels, going out there, showing out, and the world is, as he's rising, people are bringing down Jalen Hurts and picking out the flaws that are Jalen Hurts. You have Josh Harris, who bought the team, and he owns the Sixers. So there's the weird in-between few in that. And then Manny, we got to talk about it because this has been pissing me off for the last several weeks. But your boy Frankie Louvu, man. We got to be honest about it, man. That hit on Jalen, it
was a little. I'm not going to
Manny, come on, like
I would say this though. If that was my quarterback, I would be calling for Louvu too. So I'm not.
Okay, cool.
I get that. I get that.
But listen. I completely respect what the Commanders did. They did what the Giants couldn't do. They got Jayden Daniels, and Jayden Daniels, I feel like if you know ball, you know the fact that he was going to come out there and show out. I was telling you guys before the show, like, this is 10 years. This is going to be like the next 10 years where it's going to be the Eagles and Commanders because the Cowboys and Giants are they're in Cancun a lot. But yeah, it's always been a very competitive matchup with them. I feel like it's never let anyone down. From my time, growing up watching the Commanders and Redskins, like I said, I've always hated the matchup. One, because there was always something going on, like an errand or a family event during that time, so I couldn't catch the game. And I feel like when you can't catch the game, things just go wrong. If you're superstitious like that. But this season, it's that first matchup, they came in with a lot of flair. They came in with a lot of fire, and I feel like we showed the Big Brother aspect of it, right? The second game, man, he knows how I feel about the second game right now. But listen, we showed up. It felt like we were gonna take them out because of how Jalen was playing. Granted, Jalen was taking out the game, CJ was taking out the game. But what impressed me most is that you saw the calm tenacity of Jayden Daniels. Like you saw a kid that didn't panic in the moment. The moment was pretty damn big because the Eagles didn't really have a lot to play for. Granted, like we did have a little bit of a lead over the Commanders for the NFCs, but you saw Jayden Daniels just show up in the moment. And the moment that they also played the Lions, like I called it, like the Lions are not beating the Commanders just because you could see like who has that fire and who has that want. And the Commanders, they didn't ride this wave just to ride the wave. They created this tidal wave, and they ended up where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm glad that you transitioned a little bit as far as speaking what Jay Daniels was able to do against the Lions. And look, when you go on the road and score 45 points, that means you had a good day offensively. And obviously some of that does have to do with what the defense was able to do to add on to it as far as the pick sixes against Jared Goff. But we talked about this kind of going into it after you saw that first game on the road at Tampa, Mandy. And you were like, all right, well, this is a level of confidence, a level of poise that we saw kind of throughout the season. But obviously you want to see what's that first playoff matchup look like. But then you go on the road and you're in the 1 seeds then in a dome that's loud, rocking. And then you're like, okay, well, this is ratcheted up. Can you go on the road and win a game that people might have thought the last one in the wild card round was a coin toss? Can you win a place where you're significantly as an underdog? And that's exactly what he did. And I say that specifically from the standpoint of his ability to score kept the pressure on the Lions to make sure that they were never comfortable in that game. So speak to me again a little bit more about that poise, but also about, again, this team and its mentality, its ability to create chaos, but also stay poised within that chaos, and their ability, obviously, to go on the road once again, underdogs into a very, wild, raucous crowd like we know Philadelphia can be.
Oh, don't say underdogs, D. Don't put that out there. Like, they're not underdogs no more.
I'm just telling you what the betting line says.
Nah, they're not puppies anymore. These are some big dogs, okay?
No.
But talk to me as far as keeping that poise within the chaos that the Commanders like to create to try and win these games, Manny. What you've seen from this team following Jayden Daniels' lead in that sense.
Yeah, like you said, it all starts with him and his poise. I feel like, he doesn't look like a rookie at all. Some of the experience that he's had in college, with those, I think about 5 years, he had previously at Arizona State and then at LSU. He's kind of had that, Joe Burrow experience coming into the league where he wasn't really a rookie, but you kind of saw some rookie mistakes, but you saw that veteran leadership that you don't really see in rookies. You see how the team kind of gravitates towards him. You see how he's able to handle pressure both on the field and off the field, immediately. Before he was even drafted, it was when they brought him in for that top 30 with the other quarterbacks with J.J. McCarthy and Drake May, he was able to respond well. I think that kind of, bolstered the confidence for the front office to, pick this guy. Like, oh, this guy he's able to, be a leader of men. He's, no matter who's around him, he's able to, just have people gravitate towards him. And that's what you want as a leader. You don't want, you don't have to have a leader that's, completely vocal and, trying to put everybody in their place. Somebody that can lead by example. I think that's what Jayden is right now. And I think that's what the Commanders, they saw in him. So right now, I feel like the way he's been able to handle different types of pressure, because that was a big issue for him in college. But the way that he's been able to prove year after year, and you see that with the pressure to sack ratio, it's improved from, I think, his first year at LSU up until now. Every year it's been steadily improving. And I don't think it's done yet, because right now I still see some areas of improvement. But just the way that he's been able to grow in each part of his game, I feel like the Commanders are seeing that, and they finally have a quarterback that can lead by example, that can, lead them through, the rough waters, and, kind of deliver them from what they were, where we were before. It was a different era, different time then, but, we are in a different time span now. So I think, we want the face of our franchise to be that kind of poised and confident person, but we also don't need him to be flashy or gaudy or anything. And I think that's perfectly who he is. We see that on the field too. There's really, folks don't really have like a game plan against him. We've kind of seen some instances where, okay, if you bring pressure or if you keep him rolling out to keep him in the pocket, that really doesn't work as much because he's a pocket passer as well as he is as a runner too. And then just bringing the pressure, but he's poised. He's not a rookie. You can't really use the same tactics that you use against other rookie quarterbacks that you use against him. You can't use the same tactics that you use against other mobile quarterbacks because he's just as much as a pocket passer as he is a runner too. I think so. And the weapons around him, I'm not going to say that, we have like an all-star cast. I think it's a little bit from there, but we do have all-pro Terry. I like what Eckler's been able to do too, but our cast could use some improvement. So the way that he's been able to, show everybody what he's got and lead this team with what we have right now and what's supposed to be a rebuild year, I think it shows a lot for not only now, but the future as well.
Hey, look, I can't blame you one bit. It's one of those guys that's a franchise altering guy. That's what he's been for you guys as far as that's concerned. There's no two ways around it from that aspect. We're going to stick as far as the Jayden Daniels conversation is going to concern, but obviously pull it out to the specific matchup of the Commanders offense versus the Eagles defense and get into it from this standpoint. I'm going to come to you, Brian, on this aspect. You guys going up against the Los Angeles Rams, some people may look at kind of the raw numbers and be like, okay, well, Stafford over 300 yards, Coward went for 100. But it was those specific moments in which the Eagles were really able to impose their will on defense, getting after Stafford, obviously with the interior of the defensive line, getting after the interior of the Rams offensive line, causing that fumble, causing the fumble on Kyron Williams, who we know he's a little bit vulnerable from that perspective as well. And then being able to make those key plays because Jalen Carter is an absolute monster. That's just what he is. Obviously got some high praise from Aaron Donald really recently as far as having a successor in the National Football League is concerned. So my question, Brian, coming to you. Different offensive scheme. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury likes to spread it out a little bit more necessarily to make sure that he's attacking the base versus nickel aspects of what the Rams, Sean McVay offense is concerned about. You guys obviously are going to put those extra bodies in the middle, force the ball to the perimeter. That's where the Commanders kind of like to operate. We saw the dynamic game that Diami Brown was able to have from that aspect. Talk to me, Brian, about your level of confidence going up against this matchup for a Commanders offense that unfortunately is going to be missing Sam Cosmi as he tore his ACL in last week's game, and how you guys try and take advantage of some interior offensive line, defensive line mismatches you guys have at your disposal.
It's Friday night, so I'm trying to behave myself and be respectful. But you're trying to, trigger me a little bit with the Jalen Carter talk, man. It's one thing I can really say is like I was surprised. I was off on his defense to start the season. But the growth, like the maturity, like you guys, like we have obviously Jalen Carter, but we have more than just that. And we're seeing how great these guys work together. Like Nolan Smith on that play where where Carter sacked Stafford, you can actually see like beforehand he signals to Nolan Smith to run a certain way, and Nolan Smith completely crashed the right side of that offensive line and just opened the whole, the Red Sea for Jalen Carter to just eat up Matt Stafford. I think a key ingredient of this defense is the composure. They're poised. Like they don't panic. On top of that, they have trust in each other. They know if that, defensive line fails, you have Zach Bond back there, you have Oren Burks, you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and you have Cooper DeJean as well. And if you go on the outside, you have a Quinion Mitchell, who was pretty impressive against Scary Terry that first matchup. I know the second matchup, I think Terry actually scored a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Diami?
Yeah, it was still.
Yeah. And Quinion, for a rookie, I mean, the kid has been phenomenal. You have Darius Slay, who's having a career season at his age. He's damn near my age, and he looks 10 times better than I look at this rate. But it's the trust. It's the trust from the veterans to the rookies. Like they have the youngest defense in the league, but you can't tell with how they approach the game. And one thing that I like about this entire Eagles roster is that they all are a reflection of each other. You can see like Jalen Hurts is probably the most. It's annoying at times, but he's the most composed quarterback in the game. He won't give you a lot of answers. He's to the point. He just wants to play. He wants to win and do what he has to do. And they're all a reflection of what he brings to the table. And it's been phenomenal to see. I don't want to. I hate sounding overconfident, but Jalen Carter against a possible backup guard it can't, if I'm a Commanders fan, it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies, especially with him coming off a career game. Now, can things change? Absolutely. Like, for all we know, Carter could have the worst game of his career. But at the same time, like, defensive line, you have Jordan Davis, you have Milton Williams, all these guys, it's a pick and roll kind of defensive line where they all work with each other and they allow the other ones to eat so the other ones could, play decoy, whatever case may be. But Jayden Daniels is a different monster, right? So the first matchup, I said that, if they applied pressure, if they kept them, a little rattled at times, it will work. And it did work to Dude's benefit. The second game, Jayden Daniels figured out how to escape the pocket and actually exposed, Zach Bond at times and Kobe Dean at times. Am I expecting Jayden Daniels to go for another 80 yards? If it was Joe Witt coaching the defense, then I would say no. Because you got to hit him, right?
gotta hit him like a running back.
But I feel like we're going to see another impressive defensive performance. I'm not saying it's a lock that the Eagles are going to win, but I think it'll be similar to the Rams game where you're seeing both offenses just trying to make something happen and kind of just being stuck. It's going to be a good game. I've been telling everybody all week, this is possibly the game of the year. Like, I know we have Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes on the other side, but this is different. Like, it's just different with Jayden Daniels and Jalen Hurts at the helm.
Yeah, no, this is going to be absolutely fun, and I'm glad that you mentioned some of those other guys in the entirety of the defense, but specifically that defensive line, because the discipline that you've seen, not just from Josh Sweat, but specifically Nolan Smith as well on the other side, you're going to have to see that once again to make sure that you're rushing Jayden Daniels within the pocket, being able to affect him, but making sure you keep him contained. There are some aspects in which he was able to get some yards, and it wasn't a big chunk of yardage outside of that one run that he had against you guys last matchup, but that's the specific ability to really just move the chains. Yeah, just a little 5 yards, 6 yards here. Those are the little things that those quarterbacks that do it effectively and a high success rate, you mentioned on the other side, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are really good at these things. Jalen Hurts can do it as well. But being able to do it at those specific times, that could be backbreakers for the defense. So being able to be disciplined, and you talked about kind of the interior of the offensive line. If you're going to put those extra, 4 hands, 2 guys, double teaming Jalen Carter, guys like Bill Williams, as you mentioned, Jordan Davis are going to be opportunity, and that also is going to be massive as far as the run game. But also a guy like Moro Jomo, who has given you guys good snaps as well in the interior. They are going to have to be able to replicate that success as well. And I've really been impressed by Smith and his physicality that he's brought to the edge and what his, maturity has looked like as well. So he's not the biggest guy, but he plays like he's 6'4", 270 pounds, because he just has that type of mentality about him. And that's what you need as far as the defensive lineman. If you're going to be on the edge, maybe a little bit undersized as well. So Manny, talking about your ability and what the Jayden Daniels can kind of do. Obviously, this is a difficult matchup from an aspect of trying to take advantage of the outside. We know the Lions corners have their issues, to say the least, and they tried to play a lot of man coverage, and they got burned a lot for it, whether it's because of Terry or De'Ami Brown and the other guys you were able to take advantage of. The rules of Vic Fangio's defense are not necessarily going to allow for you to easily get to those matchups, and they're not necessarily going to be great matchups when you get to them because, as Brian said, Darius Slay and Grignon mentioned are playing at an extremely high level. So talk to me a little bit about not only obviously the challenge that it is up front, but how you feel about what those matchups are going to look like as far as the perimeter is concerned for these weapons against what is a really good Eagles secondary.
Yeah, so I'm expecting us to kind of, work towards the short game a little bit, not only because we're down a lineman, so we're going to have to get the ball out a lot quicker than usual. But like you mentioned, you got some 2 studs on the outside, and then for Cooper DeJean too, and then it's gonna be tough to move through the air. I was kind of surprised in that second matchup that Jayden was able to move the ball with ease. Kind of had to move around a little bit and make some things happen, but he still looked pretty confident back there. I'm not expecting the same type of ease this level, because championship game is win or go home. I think week 16. They weren't really playing for too much. I think they were still playing their best, but I think we're going to see some different types of coverages because I think week 10, I think it was week 10 or week 11, where that first matchup, we saw a little bit of discrepancy between how much they decided to blitz and bring pressure and then how much they decided to sit back. Just because nobody knows, how to stop Jayden Daniels. We're trying to figure things out. Vic Fangio, he's one of the defensive coordinators that I won't say fear, but I have a lot of respect for, just because of the way he's able to not only create coverages, but kind of mix and match them a little bit. And you can have 2 different types of coverages on the same play. And I don't think quarterbacks they struggle. They'll struggle a little bit. And we're talking about Jayden Daniels. He's a rookie. No matter how many amazing highlights he's put up and how poised he's looked up, I think it's gonna get into his head a little bit, especially on the road. Last week, it was a rough environment, but I'll give him credit because he stepped in, looked pretty confident, looked unfazed. He looked like he was where he was supposed to be, and I think that helps the rest of the team too. But I think kind of like last week, I was saying that if we're going to work through Eckler a little bit, work with Ertz, I think that's going to be kind of similar scenario this time, especially if their linebackers are going to be worried about if he's going to if Jayden's going to take off or not. And they're kind of keeping the double QB spy. Maybe they won't do a double QB spy. Maybe they'll be more worried about contain and keeping him in the pocket. But I think Eckler, he's going to play a big part. Maybe not as much as Terry. I don't think he'll have as much success as he did in the last matchup. But I do think that, as long as he's taking away Quinion and then Diami's going to – if Diami can have a play or two, I think, that's gonna help our offense a lot. But I think mostly we're going to try and get the ground game going. But I'm not sure that's going to be too effective. But I do think, getting the ball out quickly, that's something that works with Jayden. I think that might be the game plan that we go with here, especially being down our best offensive lineman against a monster like Jalen Carter there.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it, specifically because Vic Fangio is not a guy that generally likes to send extra guys if he does not have to. He prefers to keep those guys in coverage, obviously. Being able to find that space underneath, allow guys to create some yards after the catch is going to be massive. The Eagles are a really good team against yards after the catch because of the athleticism of their defense and what it presents. But maybe you can get an Oren Burks out of position a little bit with an Austin Eckler, create one of those things and try and create those explosive. Eckler was a guy versus the Lions that had, I think it was over 7 yards a carry on the ground and over 10 yards a catch. Those are the types of things that he can provide at the backfield as a changeup to Brian Robinson Jr. if you're able to do so. And again, if generally speaking, you're not going to get too many exotic blitz looks from a defense that Vic Fangio presents. It's mostly going to be kind of static as far as the line is concerned, but obviously it's different as far as the back end. Spread them out, try and get as many people out in as far as routes and coverage, present Daniels with some options and see if he can find the right guys, the holes to be able to deliver some tight window throws into, and he's going to make some more of those as far as that's concerned too. So flipping the side of the ball as far as the Eagles offense versus the Commanders defense. And I'm going to come right back to you, come right back to you, Manny, as far as this is concerned. The thing that we talked about as far as into the Lions game, how are they going to be able to have a chance to stop the Lions run game, which they didn't. Jahmyr Gibbs had himself a day. He just did. But the one thing that I noticed as the game went on, there were times in which they were able to create enough chaos as far as the defensive line was concerned. And a big piece is going to be Allen, who we don't know is necessarily if he's going to play or not. Obviously, he had some issues in practice throughout the entirety of the week. But the ability to send some extra guys at the line of scrimmage, try and shoot a gap, and you're going to get gashed. And obviously, with the team that employs Saquon Barkley, that's not going to be a fun when you get gashed. You're not going to enjoy that experience. But the point of this is to try and get them behind the sticks on once or twice and try and get Jalen Hurts to be that drop back passer from that perspective and take advantage off of that. So talk to me about some of the chaos that you guys can kind of create and then try and getting off the field once you do create that versus what is still a good drop back passing game because of Jalen Hurts' ability and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside as well.
Yeah, so, stopping Saquon or stopping the run in general has been a challenge for us all year. We've given up a lot of explosive plays. We kind of saw it a little bit with Bucky. We saw it a lot with Jahmyr. So I'm expecting kind of a little bit more attention to Saquon this week, but I'm not too sure how effective it's going to be. I do know that a lot of the times that we do get gashed, we're not disciplined in our gaps and in our rushing lanes. So I think if we're able to get our blocks too, that can be because the Lions, they were getting to the second level pretty quickly and pretty, effectively. So they were taking our linebackers out of positions. Our safeties were out of positions. We can't really have that, going against Saquon. So I think, even if we do stop him for, a play or two, I think you still got to, still stay disciplined because he's capable of, ripping a 65-yard run any part of the half. So I think, we got to stay disciplined. I think Bobby Wagner was saying it all week. You got to stay disciplined. We got to make sure we got to find a way that we have all eyes on Saquon at times, and we can't get eaten up by the blocks once they get to the second level. Because guys are getting 5-10 yards without being touched, and I don't think that's not gonna fly with versus the Eagles offense here. So I'm saying if they could, I think towards the end of the second half of the last matchup, I think we bottled him up a little bit where, the first half he kind of had some explosive runs. But in the second half, we kind of held him, I think it was under 4 yards a carry, closer to 3 yards a carry. I'm not expecting that to be the case for the whole game. But I do think that if Jalen Hurts is limited as far as his mobility, that can allow us to focus on Saquon a little bit more. like it kind of did in the second half of that Week 16 game. So I'll keep my eyes open for that, but I'm not going to be too hopeful. That I don't think you can stop Saquon completely, especially behind that offensive line. But if we are able to get into the create penetration with our defensive tackles in Payne and Allen, if he's good to go, I feel like he's gonna leave it out on the table. So I think we're gonna see our best games from them. Will it matter? We'll see, but I think they're going to try and create some chaos in the backfield. We'll see some tackles for losses against Saquon, but the hope is we just stay disciplined, that he doesn't rip off those consecutive 20 and 30 yards, and then those house calls too.
Yeah, we know how Saquon can get with his home run calls. Obviously, he has the ability to turn any type of carry from anywhere on the field into 6. And that's a dangerous proposition when you want to live in the chaos world. But it is kind of the Commanders', hallmark for right now, where they have to live from that perspective too. So, Brian, flipping it, obviously we know Eagles coming in, they have an excellent offensive line, excellent run game because of the threat that Hurts presents with his legs, which you saw to start off the game versus the Rams. We saw what Saquon can do, wearing down a team and then eventually hitting with the knockout punch. As you look at this, let's go into a world, the hypothetical, in which the run game does get stopped on those 1 to 2 plays. And I'm not saying it's going to happen often. It's not going to happen often. The Eagles are going to get theirs on the ground. But those few times that it does, the ability for Jalen Hurts to kind of be able to turn some behind the sticks, second and third down and longs into conversion from that perspective. Again, kind of doing a check-in as far as your confidence level, throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert as well, who I think has a good matchup coming into this. We saw, obviously, last week, A.J. Brown had the one key drop on the end breaker kind of early on in the game. Later on in the game, they had him down the sideline. He wasn't able to haul in that pass that could have possibly been a touchdown. I don't expect A.J. Brown to drop those balls moving forward, but just talk to me as far as your confidence in the passing game in that case, in which there are the chaos aspects in which the Commanders maybe get you guys behind the sticks.
The Eagles' passing game is a gotcha passing game. The reason I say that is because when they want to turn it on, they'll turn it on at ease. And it's not even a cocky standpoint from it. It's just a fact of the matter. I mean, they were challenged, in their passing game to show up against the Steelers, and I think it was AJ and Smitty both had 100 apiece, and Jalen went off, and it was just like, okay, like Jalen finished the press conference like that's what y'all wanted to see, kind of thing. Yeah. And I say that because a lot of what the Eagles are doing, and a lot of what they did this season, is they played a bit down to their opponent at times, where it's kind of like, Saquon works, and we're just gonna use that all day and not worry about anything else. I'm not too concerned about what's gonna look like against the Commanders. Jalen did mention that he might be wearing a brace, but from what I was reading about earlier as well, it looked like he was actually a lot more mobile in practice, and he's actually he was throwing a lot better than he has in recent weeks. I know he struggled against the blitz in the past couple of weeks, but gotta remember, because of our boy Frankie Louisville, Jalen missed quite amount of time. So come on, Manny, it's bittersweet, bro.
Hey, I hear y'all. So I'm not gonna say too much, man.
I think I wouldn't have been mad because I would, if maybe it was coincidence, but when he did it to Jared Goff, I'm like, this guy, I'm getting this, bro. Like, he's trying to take people out.
You better get down.
I wanted him to Philly. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted him to sign in Philly when he was in the offseason. So I'll give you guys that was a good move. Yeah. But my thing with Jalen Hurts is, he's gonna turn it up. Like, he's a competitor at the end of the day. Like, Jalen Hurts is balled with, in the Super Bowl with a busted shoulder. He took his team to the Super Bowl with a bad shoulder. He's worn the brace. He played all season last year with a busted knee. If you're thinking you're getting anything less of what you expect from Jalen Hurts at this point in the season, then you're greatly mistaken. I expect them to be mobile. I expect the RPOs to still be a thing with them. And I don't expect them to break off another 45-yard touchdown, but I do expect them to be efficient with it. And when AJ and Smitty spoke in the locker room, every time they have a bad game, they somehow bounce back. And I know AJ's been really banged up with that knee. So I would expect a big game out of Smitty, which I think he's had a couple big ones against the Commanders in recent years. But it's one of those things where it's like in Madden, right? Like, damn, like, this isn't working first quarter, and then I know where you start turning it up, and then you surprise your boys. It's like it's gonna be like that with Jalen. Like, he's very underrated when it comes to his passing game, and he's grown a lot with it. My only thing with Jalen is you gotta let go of the ball when it's time. Like, just you gotta throw the ball away. You can't be taking sacks like you did it against the Rams.
Yeah, and that's the negative piece of it. You have to, like you said, you have to get rid of the ball. And Jalen Hurts has one of the highest times to throw, because
Yeah.
he does tend to hold onto the ball. And again, not a slight Jalen Hurts, but in a different way than a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, when they hold onto the ball, generally speaking, they're able to create some things. Jalen Hurts has more negative things happen necessarily when he holds onto the ball, longer because at his heart, even though he has the mobility, he wants to be a pocket passer. He wants to get
Mm-hmm.
the ball out on time, and ultimately, if you can cover well enough to make him hold on to the ball, then you're moving in the right direction. But given the fact that you're talking about covering Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and AJ Brown, specifically with the weaknesses that we've seen in the Commander secondary, that is not always an easy way to go about life in that aspect too.
Hey, but they have a stud cornerback, and I can never pronounce his last name. I'm trying to give Manny credit because
You're
they
saying
deserve to
no?
be here.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Mikey
Oh,
Sanderson.
Aaron still?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Was he
Pro
like a second?
zone.
What
He's a
round
rookie.
was he picked then? Was it
Oh,
second or?
Yeah, second round.
early second,
Yeah,
right?
kid is a
Yeah, early
stud, dude.
second.
Like he legitly held AJ Brown down, and I was, that's an impressive effort. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting how they try and get to those mismatches. And I think Dan Quinn has been really good at being able to present different looks from that perspective as well. And look, last game versus the Lions, Amon-Ra still had himself a day. So, these things happen from that aspect too. But still, being able to make it difficult on the other guys is worth something. Nobody, I think Laporta maybe had 50 yards. He obviously had that spectacular catch in the back of the end zone. But still, they did a solid enough job through the passing game, make it difficult from that standpoint. Obviously, they were able to turn over the Lions, which is, that's what you're trying to get to as far as the name of the game and turnovers, especially this time of year when you talk about teams that are so good at protecting the football as well. So, all that being said, obviously, we can kind of get into the best bets for this specific matchup. I'll say this: I like two matchups. I kind of hinted at it a little bit. I think Dallas Goedert can have himself a game. You mentioned the RPOs from that aspect. A lot of times those RPOs will have some point of getting Dallas out into kind of the flats. I think the Commanders are going to be attacking the line of scrimmage. There may be some chance for Dallas to kind of get the ball quickly, create some yards after the catch. So I do like the fact that I think he's right around 42 and a half yards. I do like his over as well. And then I'll say, this seems like easy money as far as I'm concerned. Like we talked about the chaos that the Commanders are going to try and create. Saquon Barkley longer than 23 and a half rushing yards. He's going to have a longer rush than 23 and a half yards. That's just going to happen. So those are my two best bets for this specific NFC Championship game matchup. Manny, I'll let you go first as a road team. What's your best bet? And then we'll go ahead and ask Brian as well.
I've kind of been hinting at it too. But Austin Eckler, I think he's going to be a pivotal part. If you look at the games that we've been playing and the games that we've been winning, most importantly, Austin Eckler's had a pivotal part, whether it's especially when it's coming down, late in the game. And we've had a couple, last minute drives where it's either icing the game or we need to go down and, kick a field goal or go and have a last minute touchdown. He's had a couple big plays on those drives specifically. So that kind of shows how much we kind of rely on him. And then just his ability to be, flexible, because not only in the offensive game, but on the special teams as well when he's returning kicks. He got voted to a Pro Bowl as a returner. So I think like it shows you how flexible and like a Swiss Army knife that he's turned into now. So I think this game is going to feature him a little bit. 3.5 receptions. I think that's his line right now. I'm going to take the over. I think he gets about maybe 5 or 6. I think it's gonna go through him and B-Rob, but most importantly Austin Eckler because of his ability in the receiving game and his ability to make things, make a man miss or two even at his late age.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that one. Brian, go ahead. Hit me with your best bet for this game.
We're not gonna talk about Zach Ertz, guys. I mean, we're not gonna talk about that.
That's a dead agenda right now. Zach Ertz, that's my man right now, but I don't know, man. He'll be solid. He's reliable, but I'm not expecting too much. I'm not expecting, a revenge game or anything like that.
You never know. Look, what's the old sports sort of thing? Same face, new place. It's time for old friends to pop up all of a sudden out of nowhere, man.
Yeah, who knows?
Smitty's had a pretty good route against the Commanders, and I think with AJ being banged up with the knee issue, we're gonna see a lot more Smitty. AJ was kind of a focal point over the last 2 games. It just hasn't worked, which is why you've seen Dallas kind of show up. You've seen the reliance on Saquon a lot. I think Smitty's right now it's over 48 and a half receiving yards. So that talking about he's our deep threat, and I'll never forget that one catch he had against the Commanders. where they smacked the back of his head into the ground, still got up. I'm expecting big plays like that out of Devontae. They got to rely on somebody back there, and I think it's going to be Smitty.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you at all for that pick as well. I think that you guys are going to have to use that pass game. And look, like you talked about, they were able to match up well enough against A.J. Brown, obviously using Mike from that standpoint. Sam's still out of Michigan. If you have to go to the secondary target as far as Devontae Smith, I think there are opportunities as far as mismatches to be had out there. And obviously, I think highly of Devontae Smith as a wide receiver as well to be able to take advantage of those. And he's the guy that can win one-on-one in structure for Jalen Hurts to get the ball out on time and on target as well. So all that's left as far as picking the game and X factors as well. I'll start out, and look, I'm tempted to just say I probably shouldn't pick against the Commanders again because obviously it hasn't worked out and twice in my favor. But I will say, as far as X factors are concerned, Commanders, I'm going to go with a guy that's near and dear to my personal heart as a Chiefs fan, Nick Allegretti. I think that they're going to help the backup right guard in that sense, and that means that it's going to be a lot of Baidaz, Tyler Baidaz, who's the center, sliding over to making sure that if they have to double team Jalen Carter at times, it's going to happen, or just being able to help the backup in general. And that means that there's going to be a lot of stress on Nick Allegretti. He played very well for us the last year as far as our playoff runner was concerned. He's going to have to be asked to step up against what is, again, a really good interior of the defensive line that the Eagles can present. On the defensive side for the Commanders, I do think that the level of physicality that's going to be necessary for the Commanders to compete in this game has to be taken up even a notch above where they were with the Lions. And think a guy, kind of not along the front as far as that's concerned is Jeremy Chin. Brings it on the back end from the safety position. He's going to be asked to run the pipe a lot, kind of trying to fill those gaps from depth as well on a consistent basis. And if he can try and create some chaos in the middle field where, Jalen Hurts will try and go occasionally, then that's an opportunity possibly for them to, limit what Dallas Goedert can do, limit occasionally what Devontae Smith can do in the passing game. They'll have the opportunity again to live in that chaotic world, but also maybe have that go in the Commanders' favor as well. On the Eagles side of the ball, you actually hit it before I could. I think Devontae Smith is a guy that's going to have to, not necessarily have to, but have to have a really good game. And I think is a guy that they can attack with on a consistent basis as well. And on the defense side, I hinted at it earlier. Nolan Smith has impressed me with the physicality. In my opinion, this is a game where they can be so focused on the interior that he can maybe wreck the game from the edge. And again, being able to rush with discipline to then get Jayden Daniels on the ground is going to be a massive piece of this as well. He has the athleticism to occasionally track him down. It's one thing that really only the Commanders, or I should say the Cowboys, were really able to do because Micah Parsons is a freak of nature. He has a little bit of that freak of nature aspect to him to be able to track down Jayden Daniels and try and get him on the ground before he shakes loose and gets to the second level and causes havoc from that standpoint. So I am going to pick the Eagles. 4.5, kind of in the range. But I think that this is going to be a one-score game, to say the least. And I do think the Eagles move on to the Super Bowl as well. Manny, once again, you are the visitor. I'll let you go ahead and give us your X factor and game pick, and then we'll have Brian go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, all right. So on the offensive side, I've already been saying his name a lot. Austin Eckler. I think this game is gonna go through him. I think he's gonna be involved early, but most especially in the second half, because I am expecting a one-score game. So when the pressure is coming or when nothing is opening up down the field, I think he's going to be able to, help us out in the passing game and, a little bit in the run game as well. On the defensive side, you already took my boy Chin. He's going to be important, especially with being that maybe second to last line in defense. And maybe he'll be around the line of scrimmage a lot too, to kind of, help stifle the Saquon home runs. But so if he misses his lane, if he gets eaten up by a block, that's probably a house call. But that's also, I was also going to talk about Frankie Luvu. I know I know you had to see this coming. You had to see this coming. And he started.
That was my X factor, bro. Come on.
Oh yeah. Look. Now he started something. So now he's got to finish it. I need to see him bring that physicality to the championship game. Maybe not. I'm not saying you got to knock anybody out. If you want to hit people like a running back.
What are we talking about now, man? Hold on.
Hey, look, just hit him like a running back.
We got a nice healthy game from these
championship.
Hit him like a running back, and this, we okay. And that's what I just need some physicality on that end, but just most importantly, stay disciplined. I just want him to. He's aggressive at times, sometimes a little over too aggressive, where he's missing sacks or he's missing tackles because he's over pursuing. I just want them to stay disciplined, keep that physicality and aggressiveness, but stay disciplined.
Yep.
And we're going to cover the spread. I think it's going to be a close game.
Okay, there you go. Love to see it. Brian, hit me with your X Factor and game pick, man.
Hey, hit him like running backs goes both ways, right? Because Jayden Daniels, he gets out there.
He's getting hit like I don't even know what. It's more than a running back, but he's getting hit.
I cringe when my quarterback gets hit. Carson Wentz PTSD.
Oh yeah.
My X factor of Eagles on defense, I'm going with the same guy I went with last week, DMac, and that's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr. He brought the boom to the Los Angeles Rams, and I feel like he's gonna have the same impact. If he's on his game, you're not seeing Daniels get away with a lot of the deep passes that he does get away with. I mean, he throws a very pretty deep ball. And I feel like if Gardner-Johnson can bring the attitude, the swagger that he's brought to the link, it's gonna be loud over there. It was shaking again in the middle of the snowstorm. So, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on defense is my X factor just because he's the outfielder that we were missing last year. He's the guy that we need right now to show up, and I think he'll show up in a big way. Offensively, I'm going with Jalen Hurts uncharacteristically, just because yes, he is a quarterback, but I feel like if Jalen Hurts can stay composed and be efficient against this Commanders team, I feel like there's no way that the Commanders stay in the game if he's at his peak. We've seen him show up tremendously in big moments. He battled Pat Mahomes at the Super Bowl level. Like it was phenomenal to see that. I'm saying that because I just think he's due. He's due for a big game, and as my daughter makes an appearance, his boy Frankie Louisville's gonna be on the other side, and he's got to give Louisville back what a little bit of his own love. But Jalen Hurts, I feel like that's he's a big X factor. Where Jalen goes, this team goes. I know Saquon has been the face of this team for the better part of the season. But if Jalen doesn't audible those two big runs against the Rams, we're not talking about the Eagles advancing. And I feel like it's his game to call, and it's his moment to really shine.
No, look, I'm not mad at you at all for that either. Well, I will say, I assume you're also picking the Eagles to win this game as well.
I'm picking the Frankie Louisvilles, the headhunters.
Oh man, I love to see it. Look, I am really excited for this game. I think that obviously some of the AFC storylines may try to overshadow it, but I think that this is going to be extremely exciting. As really the Eagles and Rams were, it certainly was the Lions and Commanders. I think that Jayden Daniels has the poise to make this a close game, one with a little bit of fireworks, one that I think that is going to force the Eagles maybe to try and throw the ball a little bit more than they may be comfortable with. But Jalen Hurts, to your point, has come through in those big moments in the past, and I got confidence that he can do it again. So this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Once again, I thank both of you for coming on, and we'll see which one of you guys I'm going to have you guys on for February to go and talk about.
Damn, you ain't got to do it like that. Damn.
Hey.
Like
somebody got to hit Cancun, man. I don't know. Somebody got to hit Cancun.
I'm not breaking the stick like Joker and saying one of y'all got to come out of there, but like that's just how these things go, dog. I'm sorry, it's that time of year. Only one person can move on, man. Oh man, look, once again, appreciate you guys for coming on. Can't wait for this NFC East battle to take place on championship weekend, man. Manny, Brian, once again, thank you guys so much. Hope you guys got a great day. Enjoy the game, man. Peace out.
Appreciate you guys.
Sir, appreciate you having me on.